Alright, as far as I can tell, this is going out to the World Wide Web of places, which is cool. I'm going to try and make this as efficient as possible. I got a YouTube email that says I just went live on things. Cool. And here we go. I have no way to look at the chat, even though... let me see if I can pull my phone up at the same time, because I'm real unsophisticated. This is... switch account to a different account that I have. There we go. Alright, so this is why I believe that Genesis is all the way through, straight through. I apologize if it's a little breathy. I'm whispery because the family's asleep. It is 3:52 Eastern Time, a.m. So, here we go. Genesis is straight history, as read. The reason I believe this is because of the way exegesis works. I'm not going to be able to look at the chat on my phone. I apologize. I'll have to look at the chat later and respond in the comments. I'm new, guys. What can I say? So, we're going to look straight through Genesis. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the text is up here as a reference. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. The earth was without form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. The Spirit of God moved on the waters. A lot of people make a big deal called gap theory between verse 1 and verse 2 because the earth was without form. That stated being verb in the Hebrew is became. And it's interesting that no Hebrew scholar in history until like 1700 something started suggesting that there was a gap here. So nobody in Hebrew reading it saw that verb tense and said, well, maybe there's a space. Nobody. But if you read Hebrew in a lexicon and you don't grow up speaking it, then you can think that. And those are the kinds of people that start suggesting that there's a gap there of thousands and thousands of years. But you can go back through rabbinical scholars and people have been looking at it in the Hebrew. Nobody says that. Nobody. Until 1700s or something, 1800s, something like that. They start trying to fit modern science that says thousands, 10,000s of years. They start trying to cram modern science in the Bible. It's one of the ways they look to do it. But anyway, so as you're reading, it reads as narrative. It's in the beginning. And then God said, let the waters, call the dry land earth, sun, moon, stars. And then here we go. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created him, male and female. Created he them. God blessed them and keep them. Said, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. And everything that he had made. And then these are the generations, is the way it comes down to. And then he makes Adam and Eve. I think, does he use generations here again? We'll see it. We'll see it in a minute. So the word generations. So this is cool. This is Blue Letter Bible. You should definitely use this. Tools. Doesn't matter if you don't read Hebrew and those are just squiggles. You go down here. These are the word for generations. Toledo, whatever. Toledo. Hebrew squiggles are relevant. Here we go. Outline of biblical usage. Descendants. Account of men. Genealogical list of descendants. One's contemporaries. Course of history. Begetting or account of heaven. Metaphorical. That's weird. Okay. Let's go down here. Lexicons just summarize the way the word's used in the Bible. So this part, wait, can I point? Oh, there we go. All of this stuff is irrelevant. What you really want is this. These are all of the occurrences in the Bible. And then the verses. There we go. I got to point opposite for the camera, and it's weird to me. So, there we go, right? Generations of the heavens and the earth. Book of generations of Adam. These are the generations of Noah. These are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, and Ham. These are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations. These are the generations of Shem. These are the generations of Terah. These are the generations of Ishmael. These are the generations of the firstborn. The phrasing is identical every single time. It's in the Hebrew. If you look in the Hebrew, if you went through every single one of these, through every one of these, figure it out eventually. They're all the same. Every one of them is the same phrasing. So if you decide that the creation account is allegory suddenly, you have no clear delineation for when it stops being allegory. Your best guess as a speed bump is these are the generations, which is where they get that metaphorical creation line in the thing. Way up here. Begetting or account of heaven, metaphorical. They decided it's metaphorical. They decided it. Because 9 out of 10 usages elsewhere in the Bible, it's not metaphorical. Unless Abraham is a metaphor, unless Isaac, Jacob, unless they're all metaphors, which is exactly where modern scholarship takes you, is it's a metaphor. All of it's a metaphor, it's symbols, and then once it's no longer rooted in history, it's fake. This is the reason the Nicene Creed included the name Pontius Pilate in their declaration that Christ was crucified under Pontius Pilate. It roots him in time and space in their reckoning by their year calendar. They could say, no, under Pilate. This is the day that it happened. So, there's no place to stop if that's some kind of weird allegory. Then Noah is a weird allegory and the flood never happened. Then Abraham is a weird allegory and he never existed. All the way down. Ishmael, Esau, none of these guys. And that's the thing too when you're we'll come back to nope. Okay, I must have got rid of the. So as you're reading down, where's my bit? Oh, there we go. Next chapter. The buttons changed when I shrunk the window for this format. This format, I'll get it right eventually. Heavens and the earth were finished, all the host of them, the seventh day. It just goes right down through. It's a seamless transition, straight through. And then we start over. Seventh day God rested from all his work that he had made. God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day the Lord made them. We have a snap back in time, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb in the field before it grew, for the Lord had not caused it to rain on the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground, no humans on earth. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the earth, and the Lord formed man of the dust of the ground. So there's no man on earth, and then that's an alarm for work. Maybe I can make this thing work now. So that's pretty. Sorry, I just realized how obnoxious that would be. Yes. The little doodad says I'm live. Bangarang. Ooh, there we go. Turn the sound off. Yes, nobody's in the chat. Cool. And nobody's watching. Good deal. But I have a way to check. Somebody might. I might not be on the internet alone. So the God. There we go. So form man of the dust of the ground. So there's nobody on earth, and then God makes a guy. This, I don't care how far back Chinese history goes. There you go. It's right there. There's nobody on the earth. There was no man. There was not a man to till the ground. pretty absolute. There we go. And specifically to prove that the 6 days are 6 days, the point of contention's in Genesis. Chuck Missler does a good thing on Genesis. He does believe what the government and NASA say and that the Earth is round, and he's a Mason, so there's that. But if you can filter that stuff out, he does some good work on the Bible things. He gets a little calamitous. Don't look at his Revelation stuff too much unless you're solid, and because otherwise he's just all like doom and gloom and robots are going to kill us all. It's nothing but a cortisol trip. Anyway, doom. Oh, this is the wrong page. There we go. So, well, Jesus first. We're here. Jesus is answering the Pharisees, and they're asking him about divorce. And Jesus' answer, have you not read, he which made them at the beginning made them male and female. For this case, man shall leave his father and mother. Jesus treats Genesis as historical narrative, fact. This is what happened, guys. I'm probably not going to fix that. Oh, I got one. Hello, chat person. So, same thing happens in... I just went through Genesis chapter 1, doing stuff. The Bible's historical narrative from beginning to end. Unless it's a weird vision thing. This here so I can see it better. Oh, dude. There we go. Bam. Jesus answered and said, there we go, hardness of your heart. Jesus treats Genesis as historical narrative. From the beginning, God made them male and female. And for this reason, a man shall cleave to his wife to become one flesh. And he takes that directly as read. So, what God put together, let no man separate. Boom. He takes Genesis as historical narrative. And proof that Genesis, God made the earth in 6 days. We come over here to Exodus. God spake all these words, saying, these are the 10 Commandments, which God writes on a stone with his own hand. Doom, 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 doom. Still God talking. For in 6 days, the Lord, he talks like a professional wrestler. He's his third person. For the Lord in 6 days made heaven and earth, and the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Wherefore it is blessed the Sabbath day and holiday. In 6 days. Doesn't matter if it's in Hebrew or Greek or whatever, it's the number 6, the word day. Every time you have a number in the word day in Hebrew, for the word yom or emera in Greek, it's a day. It's a 24-hour period. Took me 4 days to get there. Our use of the English word day is the same as the Hebrew yom, just about. If I told you it took me 5 days, you're like, well, wait, in your father's day, back in the day, days, like ages? No, it took me 4 days to get there. 4 days. Or to get the assignment done, or whatever. So, bam. Also, don't kill. It's very important. Don't kill anyone. Maliciously. That word has malice behind it. Anyway. So, also, we're going to go to Paul in Acts. This is the sermon on Mars Hill to an unknown God. It's a good sermon. But for the point of our stuff, God made the world, all things therein, seeing that he is the Lord in heaven and earth, dwelling not in temples made with hands, neither is worshipped with men's hand. And he hath made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on the face of the earth. There are not multiple atoms. There's one atom that God made in the beginning. Back over here. There you go. There was not a man to till the ground. And then God formed the man of the dirt of the ground and blew him up. There we go. So back to Acts. So it's very important theologically that we're all come from one man, because wherefore by one man sin entered the world, and death by sin, so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. Death reigned from Adam to Moses over them that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him who was to come. So even though we didn't sin in the same way specifically, we die. Physical death. I think the weird delineation all the evangelicals have between spiritual death and physical death is preposterous. When somebody has terminal cancer that's inoperable, they're dead. They get to walk around a couple more years, but they're effectively already dead or dying. They're on their way to it. And that's what happens the moment you're born and you begin to age. You're dying very slowly. You are, in effect, already dead. You just have a stay of execution. There's no need for a weird delineation. And that word death just means death all the time. It's visceral. It is the fact that your body just doesn't move and work right. So, death, actual physical death, right? And everybody dies. So, the way, this is important, the way Bible tracks fault and lineage is through the seed. Because we look over in Hebrews, and this is part of the case that the author of Hebrew makes. I think it might be Luke, but everybody says Paul. So the way he's making the case for Melchizedek is a better priesthood is that it received tithes from the Levitical priesthood because Abraham paid tithes to Melchizedek because he was yet in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. So through Abraham, Levi paid tithes to Melchizedek, which means Melchizedek is a higher priesthood. That's an entire point that this guy makes, which is not a way I would make the case, but also I'm not a divinely inspired biblical author. So this is clearly, I keep pointing in the wrong direction, this is clearly how the Bible tracks things like lineage and fault, which then makes perfect sense coming back over to Romans, that through one man, whereas by one man sin entered the world, and death by sin. So death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. We were all in Adam when that moment happened, which is why we all deserve physical death. We all die physically. It's the consequences of his sin. And we escape that because Christ is righteous and was slain anyway in his righteousness. And God undid an infinite injustice and can now be applied to all of us. If you are his kinsman, he will be your kinsman redeemer. So that's about it. I have other tabs open. There we go. And so we come back to there are not multiple Adams. Additionally, Adam called his wife Eve because she was the mother of all living. As we come back to Genesis, and there's a smooth, even flow. We go from Cain and Abel. We go through Cain and Abel, the story of that. It's all his setup. Here's a story that happened, historical narrative, point by point by point by point. And the book of there we go. This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female, he created them, blessed them, and called them by their name. Adam, in the day they were created. Adam lived 130 years, beget a son in his own likeness after his image, called his name Seth. The days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. But all the days of Adam lived for 930 years, and he died. This is unprecedented in ancient bibliography, genealogies. Ancient genealogies, Seth lived 105 years and beget Enos. They give the age at which the children are begat. And then they give how long they lived afterwards. And the math does add up, and it does add up to about 6,000 years. Even the Septuagint's about 6,000 years. Give or take. The ages are a little different, and apparently they have some people, if you add the ages up, living after the flood or something, but I haven't looked into that. Enosh lived 90 years and begat Canaan, every single one. This is unprecedented. Sometimes you get the number of years they lived. If you track these as months, which is some people argue like, well, we don't know a year is still a year. All right, fine. But it's not like years haven't changed at all for how many thousands of years of recorded history. Everybody tracks a year just about the same, give or take a couple of days. They're like, well, it might have been an ancient word for month. Well, if you do the math, some of these people are having their first child when they're like 10 and 11 years old. That's a little weird. You got to deal with that if they're not actual years. And the thing is, this is the same flow, historical narrative these are the generations of, all the way to Abraham. There's no clean break. If you decide it's an allegory, and then there was Noah, and then we go into historical narrative of Noah. There's no clean break. There's no transitional point that you can find to say, well, now it stops being magical allegory land. It's just not there. So you have to artificially create one, at which point you've superimposed your knowledge onto the text. Now, the Bible is supposed to be an authority for our life, which means we're supposed to conform what we believe to the Bible. We need to take the Bible as an authority and make everything else that we see and believe and put it in subjection to what the Bible says about it. Otherwise, Christ didn't die for your sins. If you believe Christ is your Savior and died for your sins, you believe that because you read it in the New Testament. And the New Testament says very clearly, Jesus treats all of the old books of Moses as written by Moses and as historical narrative. And so you can't really get away from that without undercutting Christ. He starts, he spoke to the people where they were at, No, that's called lying. If you speak words that are not in accordance with reality, it's a lie. So if he spoke to what the people believed or where they were at, it means he compromised objective reality to comfort them. That's not Jesus. That's not Jesus at all. So that's why I believe the earth is 6,000 years old, and we all came from one man, Adam. I don't care how far back Chinese history goes, 10,000 years, whatever. They're wrong, because Christ died for my sins, and he treats Genesis as narrative, historical narrative, objective history. So when you read it, you get 6,000 years. You can't fit any more in there. So that's where I land on it. So the other thing I wanted to do with this stream is talk about the book I am attempting to write, quite feebly. I'm a Bible college dropout turned electrician. I volunteer heavily at my church. But I am attempting to write a book that I feel called to write. I don't want to call it the... no, there we go, we'll leave it on that one. I want to call it the Blue Collar Christ, because I think it's important. Blue-collar folks are being overlooked. I still had hope for evangelical Christianity when I started writing this book. And I don't know how exactly to frame it or to continue. But I need to step away from YouTube things intentionally. My goal is to have a working draft by April. And so all spare time will be devoted to turning this into a working draft. But I wanted to just go through the information, and I had no idea how on earth I was going to publish it. And then Nate started a publishing company. So my goal is to publish through Nate's company in the event I can actually create a functioning manuscript. But I started this project because just every sermon, everywhere, everything, the focus on the family stuff is nothing but talking to single moms and people who work in offices. Then they ask, why aren't there men in the church? So I'm letting they're all on construction sites because they all get up at 4 in the morning. So the there's a little snappy rhetoric. I want to call it the blue-collar blind spot. But essentially, I want to write this to the average pastor in the pulpit because there are a lot of good men there, and there's simply blind to the reality of things. You're blind to a lot of things when you think the earth is round. And so I simply want, in a small way, to wake them up, to realize that they need to get real working men with calluses on their hands in their churches. Because I don't think it's intentional or malicious. It might be at some high level, but it's just a matter of ignorance. So I want to throw some numbers and statistics at them. I did a survey of evangelical literature, so I got numbers that I had derived myself. I did a survey of 250, 300 books on the Amazon top 100 of occurrence of blue-collar language versus white-collar language. It's about 5 to 1. And the fact that basically 0 of the authors have a real blue-collar background. That wasn't them doing something in high school. Which is interesting. Like, why aren't the churches educating or discipling anyone? Why isn't there anybody who's like, I used to be whatever, and now I'm a pastor and I write books? They're not there. They're all lawyers. Or they went straight into ministry school and they run around and do whatever. So I just want to point out, average church service, all of it, everything goes around a schedule for white collar stuff. The hours, there's a lot of it. It's all skewed. Anybody who works on the weekend, anybody who works evenings, you effectively never go to church. And there's never a program or a view towards that or an eye towards that in early service. So I'm just pointing out the difference. They work early, they work late, they work on holidays and weekends. Why wouldn't the church have like a second Thanksgiving thing just a week before, a week after, for all the people that work on Thanksgiving? Don't know. Why wouldn't you? It's not hard. You have a bunch of people paying to keep that building open for free for you, Pastor. So, language argument from assumed, inspired. There we go. So, and then blue collar is important because Jesus is blue collar. Don't let anybody tell you Tectone isn't a carpenter. They're wrong. That was the other thing, is I painstakingly hand translated every occurrence of the word Tectone in the Septuagint, both from Hebrew, the Harash, and in the Greek. And as well as in, I forget how many references, about 40 plus references in literary Greek. And I pulled them from the same time, within about 100 years of when the New Testament was written. And it universally means a guy who works with wood with an axe. That's a chapter in the book. I want to just murder the idea that, he could have been a stonemason. No, Jesus isn't a mason. All your Solomon's Temple Masonic nonsense can go. Jesus wasn't a mason. I've got some contemporary references that show Tectone. They're not a business owner, like some politicians will sit there and say he's a construction worker, effectively a modern construction worker, where you've got very little money to make the bills, and you live hand to mouth by and large. And that's from Antipodes, Aeneas, I forget the guy's name. It starts with an A. Elian, I think. A-E. And then, talking about how blue-collar metaphors are the core of gospel teaching and the core way it's communicated. A lot of this is placeholder outline. I was just doing off the top of my head. I outline stuff like that, and then it takes forever to flesh out the outlines and fully articulate the thoughts. But earthen vessels, even the Old Testament, Jeremiah's potter and clay, blue-collar. And then talk about blue-collar guys in history of the church. Excuse me. Adam as a carpenter, Noah's carpenter, Adam as gardener. The fact that Jesus and all the apostles are craftsmen of some form or fashion. And Paul was a tent maker and plied his trade. James and Jude, depending on when Joseph died, were probably taught to carpent. I'm sure that's the verb for carpenter. By Jesus himself, So this is the stuff I want to articulate fully and clearly in my book that I'm hoping to finish up. Still one person in the chat. Good deal. Hi, person. There you go. Hi, person. Oh, it was just lagging. I was looking at the thing. All right. Blue collar is central to culture, and just point out some demographic stuff I got from Pew and some other online things. Department of Labor statistics as well. I cross-reference some things from Pew and Department of Labor statistics. But essentially half of all Christians, evangelical to Catholic to everybody, just over half of them make less than $50,000 a year without 75% have no degree. Cross-referencing that's essentially 56% are blue collar, more or less. I don't know how statistics work. And then a full 13% of American jobs are blue collar, which doesn't sound like much until it's 13% of however many 100 million. That's a large swath of stuff. So there's an attendance gap. You gotta use some of their lingo nonsense. But yeah, there's about a 5% difference in women to men in modern churches because modern church is effectively designed for women and children. And as Nathaniel Slattery is fond of saying, Christianity isn't for women and children. Christianity is not for children. Christianity is not for children. It's for men. And everything they do appeals more to women. Yeah, 79% of blue collar are men, and that's only because it's not 95 or 100% because they count office workers in those statistics, and I don't know what ratio. So I just use the straight number. I don't want to get in a guessing game. But they include contractors and all the people who do the office work in that number for construction workers in the Department of Labor, which infuriates me as someone with calluses. So, why are men important to the church? Make history, hold the line. So, anybody who cares about anything that I've said, here's how they would go about changing it. Everything's, I feel, is reasonably rhetorically snappy. Oh, this is not. I need to tab that in. Oh, but then I've got to tab all of the. I got to fix this later. Say I love you. Control Z. Abort. All right. So with our hands, how do we fix it? By developing, I also want to coin the term ergology. It's just a study of work, but a biblical study of work. That you need to have a theology of how you work, and then you need to intentionally educate your people, not feel good. Stop sinning sometimes. Hebrews says the milk of the word is repentance of dead works. There needs to be deeper things. You need to be willing to attempt to teach construction workers Greek and Hebrew and all of that stuff. In about 45 minutes, I could teach anyone to navigate Greek and Hebrew to a level where they can find whatever they want on Blue Letter Bible or with the Strong's Concordance and do actual word studies and not fall into some of the easy traps. Literally anyone who cares and pays attention and can read English and find a Bible verse. A lot of these tradesmen, that's all they do all day. That's what they know is finding information in a book and arguing over specifics. That's what a code book is. You have to find the code book references, read the reference in context, and then discern how you're supposed to act from the reference. That's Bible stuff. I'm using Bible college skills to look at a code book in a trade. It's insane. And then the other thing, you just got to get off your butt and serve. Too many church ministries are running around. Let's sit in a room and talk about feelings and read that Bible verse and tell us how it feels. There's a time for that. There's a place for that. That is literally all churches everywhere for all Bible studies. It's insane. You should run a food pantry. How many of your men do you challenge to volunteer at the food pantry at the back of your church? Interesting. When was the last time? Every church has a list of shut-ins they minister to. Every decent church has a list of people who cannot leave their home, widows, elderly, and is medically infirm, that the pastor will go and visit and keep tabs on and say hi to. How many of those people have leaky doorknob or leaky faucets, loose doorknobs, leaky squeaky hinges? Why wouldn't you take a group of 5 guys and just show up and fix their house? Install a ramp and do whatever. No, that's men's ministry. That's men build things and men fix things. And there's not enough building and fixing coming from the church. And the other thing is the pastor needs to go where they are. Yeah, you guys pay for that fancy building, but don't expect everybody to show up there all the time. A lot of gas stations or Sheets and stuff will have tables. Can you imagine what would happen if you started a Bible study at 3:30, 4 in the morning with men from your church just at the local 7-Eleven or somewhere where there was a table, or McDonald's, or someplace open? You gotta be up early. We get up early. Life moves fast. I still have to do some semblance of getting ready and go to work here in about 3 or 4 minutes. So, just it's the way stuff is. You have to, as a pastor, be willing to get your butt out of bed and go meet people where they're at. I know you spend lots of nights out late. It doesn't have to be every day, but once a week, once a month even. Anything's better than nothing. And then you gotta change the worship music just a bit, and all these female leads and teeny boppers singing men's songs. I don't know how many of you listen to Christian radio, but it's absolutely appalling. You've got songs like "I'm a warrior," "I'm a fighter," "I'm a warrior." Psh, come on now, you never killed anybody in your life. Let's get some men singing those kind of songs in the church. There's some old hymns that are. All the songs are about emotions too. None of them are about actions. A lot of the old hymns. This old hymn called "A Beautiful Life." You can't find it in half the hymnals. Life's setting sun is sinking low. A few more days and I must go to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun. My time on earth is but a span, and so I'll do the best I can. You don't hear that in churches anymore. Maybe some non-instrumental brothers. You know what I'm talking about. It's a Church of Christ denomination, non-instrumental Church of Christ. They do nothing but sing hymns a cappella, and they got some other problems with them, but solid. I think you need at least one a cappella Sunday in a standard church. I'm straight Protestant, by the way, so Protestant generic. I don't like the Protestantisms. The Lollards. That's my style. Out of Wycliffe, Tyndale. That's my crew. Waldensians. Other than like getting murdered by a bunch of Catholics, make you think about life differently. So yeah, there should be times in the church and Bible studies where it's okay to cuss. Dirty boots and dirty words should be allowed. And some snappy rhetoric, right? I like it. No. That's my go to work alarm. It's easy to lose track of time early in the morning. I've got an alarm for like every 15, 30 minutes. I apologize. So yeah, and then just intentionally educate people and stuff. And then I'm going to have appendices. I want it footnoted. I don't want a scholar to be able to punch holes in it easily. But yeah, that's it, man. That's the book I'm trying to write. I'm going to, I've already kind of been not doing a whole lot on YouTube because things are busy and a little insane. We got nothing but vehicle trouble and fun problems. But my goal, though, is to focus all spare effort on getting this book actually written and having a functional draft. I've got extensive outlines and been collecting sources and footnotes and stuff and getting my thoughts figured out. So each folder here is going to be one of the chapters in each chapter has the subheadings as its own folder, and then the subheadings are book. Now it's Spiderweb. I don't want to mess with it right now to show you guys, but that's my goal is to get a functional draft. I'm shooting for between 150 to 200 pages. Is about the attention span of the average pastor reading a book, which is my goal. I want to write a book to evangelical pastors with good hearts who are just a little deceived, and get them looking at guys in their church that know how the world works, the guys with calluses, and speak to them more where they're at. That's it. That's all I got. So, as the Lord wills, I will finish that up and get back to it. And until then, I'm not going to be on the YouTubes or the other places quite at all. I may respond to comments and stuff here and there, but I'm not going to put any more videos up or spend mental bandwidth trying to figure out how to put videos up. Everything's going to be spent on getting this book done because it has to be done, or I just feel like I'm never going to get it done. So I feel called to write it, so I have to finish it. So that's it. Hope your morning's good, or whenever you're watching this. Goodbye, one person in the chat. I'm going to roll out. And it's been good. I'll see you in a few months or so. Godspeed.